After World War II, a remote prison in Siberia held countless German prisoners of war. Among them was a man named Clem, sentenced to 25 years. The prison had minimal security, yet no one dared escape. Not because of the guards, but because the prison was surrounded by endless frozen wilderness, located 14,000 kilometers from any human settlement. Any escape attempt meant freezing to death in the brutal Siberian cold. But Clem refused to die in chains. He missed his wife and daughter and couldn't accept spending the rest of his life in captivity. One night, he seized opportunity and hid inside a coal-carrying freight train. The joy of seeing the stars in the open sky overwhelmed him. However, the train was soon stopped, and a Russian soldier caught Clem. He was returned to prison and locked in an open-air cell as punishment. 2 days later, the warden let him out, but Clem's return was met with hostility. His fellow prisoners, angry for being starved due to his escape attempt, beat him badly. He was so injured he had to be hospitalized. The prison doctor, also a German prisoner, treated him. Impressed by Clem's bravery, he warned that escaping was nearly impossible. But staying meant slow death from lead poisoning in the mines. The doctor himself was terminally ill, having only a month to live. Instead of escaping, he handed Clem his own warm clothes, boots, a gun, and a lunchbox. "If you survive," he said, "deliver this to my family. Tell them I'm gone." That night, Clem escaped again, this time on foot. The next morning, the warden discovered the doctor dead. He had taken his own life before being interrogated. Furious but not surprised, the warden ordered a large search party, knowing Clem wouldn't give up easily. Meanwhile, Clem was trudging through a snowstorm. On the 9th day, exhausted and starving, he collapsed. He dreamed of being crushed by a sled, but woke to realize he was still alive. His food was gone. His body was weak. Still, he kept walking. Suddenly, he heard a noise. It was a seal. Starving, Clem took aim with his last bullet, but missed. The seal escaped behind a rock. As it prepared to dive into the water, Clem fired again and hit it. Overjoyed, he cooked and ate the seal, then rested before continuing his journey. He kept walking, talking to himself to stay sane. The silence and snow could break anyone's mind, but Clem stayed focused. He used a compass to keep direction and refused to give up. After nearly 2 months, Clem saw a tree, a single small tree standing in the snow. He ran to it, hugged it, and cried. It meant he had finally left the Arctic Circle. But his journey was far from over. As Clem journeyed out of the Arctic Circle, the warden intensified the search. Troops were ordered to cover a 500-kilometer radius. Meanwhile, Clem walked into a forest, unaware that nature had more challenges waiting. A sudden snowstorm struck. The wind howled, trees cracked, and snow blinded him. Just as Clem tried to press forward, a massive tree fell on him. Luckily, 2 men named Sam, John, and Matten, gold hunters in the forest, found him and pulled him to safety. After days of walking together, the trio left the snowy plain behind. They arrived at a river. To cross it, they built a wooden raft. As they drifted downstream, they laughed and shared stories of childhood. But the river current grew stronger, and Sam John lost his balance. He fell into the freezing water and began to drown. Without hesitation, Clem jumped in and rescued him. Meanwhile, Matten panicked. He abandoned them and continued on the raft alone. Later, Matten reached a hut where he and Sam John had stayed earlier. Greed got the better of him. He assumed Sam was dead and stole his gold and belongings. But Clem and Sam survived. When they reached the hut and saw Matten's betrayal, Sam was furious. He shot Matten in a rage. Now just Clem and Sam remained. They repacked and continued their journey, surviving on hope and determination. Days turned into weeks. Winter returned, and the forests were buried in snow. Sam carried heavy gear and began to struggle in the deep snow. Clem offered to carry some of his load, but Sam grew suspicious. He thought Clem wanted to steal his gold. Fear took over, and he struck Clem, knocking him unconscious. Clem awoke to the sound of howling. A pack of wolves was approaching. He climbed a thin tree, but the wolves dragged at his leg. The tree broke, and Clem fell. Just as the wolves closed in, gunshots rang out. Local hunters had arrived. They killed the wolves and saved Clem's life. They brought him to their village and treated his wounds. For the first time in years, Clem was among kind people. He stayed in the village and was cared for like family. But peace wouldn't last. One day, a government notice arrived. The warden had sent out a message. A German escapee is on the loose. Anyone helping him will be charged with treason. Though they didn't want to, the villagers asked Clem to leave. Before he departed, they gave him food and a loyal hunting dog to accompany him. Clem was touched. He and his new companion continued their journey. One day, they found a lumber mill. Clem's dog ran inside, searching for food. Clem followed, and the workers recognized him. They took him to the owner. Clem told his story. Moved by his journey, they fed him and helped him board a train heading toward Germany. But unknown to Clem, the mill owner had informed the warden. The warden and his men waited at the station. As the train neared, Clem spotted the soldiers and jumped off. He ran across the tracks, but the warden appeared in front of him. Before the warden could arrest him, Clem's dog attacked, biting him and giving Clem a chance to escape. Clem fled, but a gunshot echoed. He turned to see his dog, dead. Heartbroken, Clem pressed on. He climbed a bridge and leapt onto a moving train, narrowly escaping again. His journey continued. Years passed. It was now 1952, and Clem had been on the run for 7 years. He wandered through Central Asia, hungry, tired, and still searching for a way home. In one small village, a fair was being held. Clem walked among the food stalls, staring at treats he couldn't afford. He saw 2 girls selling pancakes. He stopped, tempted, but turned away sadly. He had no money. One of the girls noticed him and, feeling sympathy, broke off a piece and gave it to him. Clem was hesitant, but accepted it gratefully. Nearby, a Jewish man watched everything. He followed Clem to a nearby church. The man, once a prisoner of war himself, understood Clem's struggle. Instead of turning him in, he offered help. He took Clem to his home. There, Clem cleaned up for the first time in years. The man gave him a set of clothes and a new passport, one that could help Clem cross the Russian border and enter Germany. Before leaving, Clem thanked the man deeply. With a new identity, he began the final leg of his journey. Weeks later, Clem reached the Russian border. He showed his passport to guards, worried they recognize him or discover the forgery. But they didn't. The guards stamped it and allowed him to cross. Clem nearly cried. He stepped onto the bridge connecting Russia to Germany. Just a few more steps and he'd be home. But halfway across, a spotlight blinded him. Clem froze. Standing in front of him was the warden. Clem looked back. He was still on Russian land. The warden could arrest him. His heart sank. All his efforts, all the pain and loss, it was all about to be wasted. But something unexpected happened. The warden stepped aside. Without a word, he let Clem pass. Stunned, Clem walked forward, crossing the border into Germany. He turned to look back one last time. The warden stood silently, watching. Maybe he was moved by Clem's determination, or maybe he respected his survival. Whatever the reason, he let Clem go. Clem had finally returned home. After crossing the border, Clem stepped onto German soil for the first time in over 7 years. The air felt different. He was finally free. He traveled to his hometown, nervous and excited. Would his wife and daughter still be there? Would they recognize him? He found his old house. From a distance, he saw his wife and daughter leaving for church. He followed them quietly. Inside the church, Clem stood at the back, watching. Then his daughter turned, saw him, and instantly recognized her father. She ran and hugged him tightly. His wife, realizing who he was, broke down in tears. They embraced. After years of pain, fear, and loneliness, the family was finally whole again. Clem had survived the impossible. He had crossed frozen wilderness, faced betrayal, escaped soldiers, and lost friends. He had risked everything to return home, and succeeded. His story wasn't just one of escape. It was about courage, love, and the unbreakable will to live. Clem's journey ended where it began, in the arms of those he loved. And with that, this powerful and emotional story came to a close.